Hiring isn't just HR's job, it's yours too. Are you surprised? Well, you shouldn't be, because in the world of accounting, bringing in new talent is often as critical as landing new clients. Overworked teams are less productive. That's a fact. There's a clear signal that it's time to hire. A survey by Accountemps found that 52% of employees are less productive due to stress. 52%. Now, I'm surprised that's not much higher. The talent you bring in today will shape the success you'll see tomorrow. Let me hit you with a bold statement. Hiring isn't just HR's job, it's yours too. Are you surprised? Well, you shouldn't be, because in the world of accounting, bringing in new talent is often as critical as landing new clients. And yet too many professionals shrug it off thinking that's someone else's problem. No matter where you are in the career ladder, in the food chain, if you aspire to any kind of leadership, a manager, a boss, a director, a principal, a senior manager, a partner, it should be everyone's job to be on the lookout for new talent and take some responsibility for bringing it in. So let me ask you a tough question. When was the last time you thought about hiring somebody at your accounting firm? You don't need to be the owner, the managing partner, the head of HR. And I don't just mean casually. I'm talking about seriously considering the talent that your firm needs, not just for today, but for tomorrow, next year, next month, and beyond. Because here's the problem. Too many accounting professionals think hiring and recruitment isn't their job. They assume it's for HR, recruitment, or marketing teams to handle. And while that's technically true, it's not the whole picture. If you want to be a leader or are a leader, manager, decision maker in your firm, you need to understand that bringing in new staff is as important, if not more important, than the work winning side of things. So let's be honest. No one's really focused on hiring unless it's in your job remit. We leave it to someone else. We're tactical thinkers. We focus on our own world, our own team, our department, our offices, our clients, our service line. We don't see hiring generally as our responsibility. We might have to interview somebody for a role in the team, but we take it for granted that that prospect, that candidate arrives ready to work for us. But obviously we take it for granted, and that's a big mistake, because here's the kicker. If you are wanting to have more of a voice, authority, influence in your firm, if you want more of a say, if you want more credibility, more kudos, more cachet, you need to get into the hiring game, because the talent you bring in today will shape the success you'll see tomorrow. And the reality is that to have more authority, influence, control, we've got to start thinking strategically about talent. We talk a lot on this show about the talent crisis. We all know it's there. Like it or not, hiring is everyone's job. And in today's episode, we're going to explore why understanding the hiring process can set you apart as a leader, as a player in your firm, and how you can get a little bit more involved in shaping the future of your firm, not just for the work you do, but for people you do it with. Hello, and welcome to the Accounting Talent Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Brown, and today's episode, we're talking about making strategic hiring decisions. We'll be pulling back the curtain, if you like, on a topic that's often overlooked, but absolutely vital: strategic hiring and why it's everyone's responsibility, not the HR, not the talent acquisition people, and not the partners or heads of service lines. It should and could be everyone's job. Now, I get you're focusing on your workload, your team, your deadlines, but if you're only thinking head down and tactically, you're missing a bigger picture. So we're going to do a 3-part mini series here, and I'm going to look with you strategically at when it's time to hire, who to hire, and how to navigate these key moments. Whether you're growing a small team, managing a larger firm, running an office, you will walk away with actionable tips on how to make hiring a strategic competitive advantage for you. And this mini series is going to look at how you elevate your influence and drive your firm toward taking ownership of the hiring process. We'll talk about the critical moments in the life cycle of any firm where hiring becomes not just an option, but a necessity. Whether you're dealing with a sudden vacancy, you've got an expanding team, you need some specialized expertise. And as anyone in accounting knows, the demand for talent can come up at any time, whether it's due to extenuating circumstances, an emergency, something happens. Stuff happens all the time. These moments are make or break opportunities, and you've got to be ready to bring in the right people to ensure you can get above and beyond it all. So here's the question we're addressing in today's episode. When should you hire? There are plenty of reasons to expand your team, but timing's everything. Number one, when a vacancy arises, let's think about turning gaps into opportunities. So, for example, your senior tax manager hands in the notice right before busy season. Not a good idea, I know, but it happens. Panic sets in, knee-jerk reaction is to post a job ad immediately, fill the spot ASAP. But hold on a second. One of the most urgent scenarios is when somebody leaves unexpectedly, and we want to instinctively fill the gap as quickly as possible. But you've got to see this isn't just a hole to fill. It's a golden opportunity to take stock, reevaluate your whole staffing situation. So instead of rushing in to replace that person with someone identical, take a step back and consider whether the role should be redefined, the responsibilities. Maybe you need someone with a slightly different skill set. Maybe this is an opportunity to promote from within and shift responsibilities across the team. There's a study by Deloitte that said 88% of employees believe that a distinct corporate culture is important to business success. So instead of cloning the last person, let's speak into that culture and ask questions like, can we redefine the role to meet future demands? Can we reinforce our culture with a specific hire that will fill in that gap for us? Is there someone internally that's ready to step up? And by thinking strategically, we're not just patching a leak, we're reinforcing the entire hull of the ship. So that's number one. And that is when a vacancy arises, take stock of the whole staffing situation. Tip number two here is when your team is overloaded, that's when it's time to think about hiring, because overload, overwhelm, we all know it's a silent productivity killer. Overworked teams are less productive. That's a fact. There's a clear signal that it's time to hire. A survey by Accountemps found that 52% of employees are less productive due to stress. 52%. Now, I'm surprised that's not much higher. If you notice your colleagues burning the midnight oil regularly, it's time to speak up. If that's you and you're starting to fray around the edges, it's time to speak up. If you're consistently seeing late nights, missed deadlines, stressed out employees, overload, overwhelm, people fraying around the edges, we've seen a lot of press recently on errors in basic compliance and audit from very big firms. Signs that the workload is going beyond what your current capacity can handle. And in these cases, bringing in extra support obviously not only helps distribute the load, but prevents burnouts, it improves retention. So I know this is obvious, but we're just making a checklist here of when it's time to hire. I read an example recently at a mid-sized firm in Chicago. The audit team was consistently missing deadlines. Now, once, fair enough, but consistently. And the solution wasn't more overtime. It was hiring 2 junior auditors. Now, you might say, Rob, we'd love to hire 2 junior auditors, but they're not out there. I admit these roles are not easy to fill. They did do it. But not surprisingly, once they did it, productivity soared, client satisfaction got back on track. And you can't wait for management to notice. We'll talk in other podcast episodes how to get those junior auditors in. And my co-host, occasionally on here, Jeff Phillips over at Accounting Fly, he has 1,000 resumes submitted to him every week from accountants and CPAs. This is just in the US, that are open and available immediately for remote work. Now, that's a whole other topic. I know we've talked a lot about remote hybrid work on this show, and you demanding people come into the office, the whole return to office mandate, and we'll give that a treatment on this show. But listen, what we've got here is don't wait for people to notice. Be proactive. Suggest hires to alleviate pressure, boost efficiency, and try and get ahead of it before the need arises. So that's number 2, is when your team is overloaded or you're starting to see signs of overload. Tip number 3 is when you're expanding a team or a service line, you've got to seize these growth moments, because growth is another indicator that it's time to hire. I spoke to an accounting firm recently that said they were about to pitch for a piece of business, but their fear was that if they won the business, they would not have enough staff to deliver it. It's a scary thought, but growth demands capacity. So let's say your firm has decided to launch a new advisory service or an outsourcing service, or a certain department or a new niche is attracting attention. It's exciting, but new services, new opportunities mean new responsibilities, new capacity. You can't expect the existing team to handle everything. Here's a quick stat for you. According to the AICPA, we all know what that wonderful governing body is. Firms offering advisory services see a 15% higher growth than those that don't. So we all know the advisory debate is finished. That's where accountants are going. Downward pressure on compliance fees, the threat of automation and artificial intelligence. Yeah, compliance isn't going away, but advisory services and telling the story behind the numbers, that's where there's a lot of revenue growth. So we've got to be identifying skill gaps in any new service lines, any niche opportunities. It might not be accounting staff that you need. You might want to hire financial analysts or business consultants to increase the demand. You can also help by recommending potential candidates or volunteering to scout some talent. You've got a professional network. The better your network, your public professional profile, the better your reputation in the business community, the more visible you'll be in the recruitment effort. So pull your sleeves up, get more involved in capacity issues. You can be directly contributing to the firm's growth. And a fourth and final one here, when specialized expertise is needed, bridge the skills gap. So when a client demands specific expertise, you need to boost your hiring efforts. When accounting becomes more specialized than it is, then there's times when you simply don't have the right skills in-house to meet client needs. Maybe you've landed a client in the crypto space or the cybersec space. It's a growing market, it's a great win, but it's a complex challenge. What do? Your team lacks experience in digital assets accounting, a growing area. Maybe you've landed a large audit contract that requires deep expertise in a specific industry. Maybe a client's asking for some complex international tax help. That's when hiring specific expertise, whether it's full-time, part-time, contract basis, is absolutely crucial. Ernst & Young invested heavily in blockchain specialists to meet the growing demand in digital asset auditing, setting them apart from competition. Big firm, I know, but they got ahead of the game. Blockchain, still around. So speak up if you see the need for specialized skills. You might be a pioneer. You might be seen further into the future than other people are seen, but recognize these moments, act on them. This elevates you from being a cog in the machine to a more of a strategic leader. Propose hiring experts or suggest training programs. It solves not just immediate problems, but positions you as a leader in the firm, particularly in these emerging fields, these growing areas. So bottom line, recognize these moments early on, helps you avoid a reactive hiring process, gets you more involved strategically in a strategic approach. So that's part one, the when of hiring. And when you see what the top leaders do and how they think more strategically, commercially, with the wider firm's needs, direction, they're the ones that stand out. In part two, we're going to look at the who of hiring, because the big question still remains, who should you bring on board? So next time we'll dive deeper into rethinking the roles when somebody leaves, why you shouldn't just replace them with a carbon copy. We'll talk about building teams for expansion, acquiring specialized talent for you for niche projects, why balancing technical skills with cultural fit is a long-term success. And here's a little bonus. I'll share some real fascinating world examples, like a firm in London boosted their case wins by 20% with a smart interdisciplinary hire. I'll teach you what you can learn from Zappos about hiring for culture. But that's almost it for today. Before we wrap up, let's put a shout out to our sister show on your radar, the Accounting Influencers podcast. Because in today's fast-changing accounting landscape, it's not enough to be good at your job. If you're serious about becoming or establishing yourself more as a better leader and influencer, both in your firm and across the industry, you need the right insights, the right strategies. That's where the Accounting Influencers podcast comes in. It's on all your podcast channels, and I'm the host. We're focused on helping accounting professionals like you build executive presence, authority, reputation, credibility, both in and out of the firm. Each episode gives you the tools to position yourself as a thought leader, someone who not only keeps up with the latest trends, but is ahead of them and will tackle the disruptive forces in the accounting world, from tech innovations to changing client demands, so you can stay strategically informed and be the go-to expert in your firm. But it's not just about what you're doing inside the firm. On the Accounting Influencers podcast, we also show you how to build your personal brand and amplify your voice externally, becoming that authority in the wider accounting and business community. So if you want to be more than just an accountant, if you want to be the person others look to for leadership, vision, influence, find the Accounting Influencers podcast on the pod platform of your choice or on our Accounting Influencers YouTube channel, where most of our stuff ends up. And let's get your influence to the next level. Thank you for joining me, Rob Brown, on the Accounting Talent Podcast. I'm urging you to seize the opportunity to make a real impact. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe to the show, leave a review if you feel so inclined. Let's keep the conversation going. And check out our brand new Accounting Talent LinkedIn company page, where we're having some juicy conversations and sharing some extra goodies with you. Have a great day. Go make a difference.